Hey you! Have you ever wanted to become a YouTuber? Cause there's a 90% chance that you did. You can't hide it from me. But what if I tell you that there's a game right now that makes that dream come true, and it's called Content Warning. If I can summarize what this game is about, I would say it's a mix between Phasmophobia and the average life of an Arabic ghost hunter. And if you're wondering why I chose that as an example, just look at this. You go to an abandoned place, you record anything slightly scary, and if you spot any creature, instead of running away, you chase after him for the sake of reaching the views quota, which you'll eventually reach anyway. Now, some of you might have checked the game and said to yourself, this is just a copy of Lethal Company. And you know what? You're right. But this game actually has some good features which make it different and at some point better than its successor by implementing different mechanics, art styles, gameplay, and switching the environment into hellholes which eventually turn your fear instincts on and make you feel, oh, are you gonna fall asleep on me now? Seriously? As I'm making a video to try to entertain you? Are you just gonna fall asleep on me now? God damn it. This is your house and where you will wake up every day to make videos for SpookTube. First things you can do is customize yourself and invite friends, if you have any.
Let me check my face. Oh fuck.
That's the best reaction.
Voila!
Going downstairs and you'll find both a TV and a writing board with these instructions. Go down to the old world, film something scary, upload to SpookTube, go viral. Seems simple enough. Outside, you have this beautiful garden with items scattered around that'll help you grow your channel. First things you're probably gonna spot are the flashlight and the camera. Now, I don't think I have to explain to you what a flashlight does, but the camera on the other hand, oof, it's your key to success on the platform. Controls are pretty simple, press button to record, but the issue comes with how do you use it. The camera mainly functions on how much film is left in it, which is set on 100 by default, and lasts for 90 seconds, which I had to make sure of myself. It has this built-in flashlight with the lowest radius ever, so if you're trying to record an enemy in a dark room, you'll have to get close to it, and in most cases that's how you get killed. But other than that, you just have to keep it steady and record anything you encounter. Back to the garden, we got the recharging stations, which of course recharge your flashlights. A projector and a screen to record some cool intros for your videos.
Yo, what's up boys? Welcome back on the epic YouTube fucking channel. Today we're gonna go back to exploring the fucking factory. Let's go with this backflip. Woo!
And a doghouse, which is where you respawn if you die. And finally, the most important ones, the store, which I'll talk about later, the extractor, which is where you'll be able to convert all the footage from your camera into a CD. And the most important thing in your garden goes to the bell. I genuinely, unironically love this thing. It's basically your free ticket down to the old world and the only place you'd be safe inside once you go down there. It contains this screen that shows you how far away each player is and how much oxygen they have left, as well as being able to close the door for as long as you want to. And trust me when I say, once you go down there, this lever will save you a lot from turning into a punching bag. And speaking of going down to the old world, that's our next destination, so let's take a look at it. Welcome to the old world. Now by the time of making this video, there's only 2 old worlds, but there's enough content in them to keep you entertained for hours. The first one is the factory. Once you leave the bell, you'll instantly notice how grim this place is, and at some point, it just feels depressing. Dead trees everywhere, huge bones, boxes and other stuff scattered around, as well as how there's no skylight at all. The only things emitting light outside are your flashlight and a light bulb suspended in the air. It's like you descended so deep that you reached a completely different world from the one you live in. By going inside, you'll find stairs that lead you down into the actual factory. This place is massive, and it's where you'll find most of the interesting stuff to film. Now, when I say that anything can be turned into content, I mean it, but you gotta know what to focus on recording more. Enemies are your main focus, but you can't just waste all of your film on a single enemy, so you gotta film a variety of them. There's also a few other things you can film, like human bones that you can find scattered around, your teammates dying or fighting back, and you can even record a few skits for fun.
Ready? Countdown 2, 1,
Jump!
You can also use the comments after you upload a video to determine what the viewers were interested in watching more. After you complete the first quota, you can move to the second old world and the safer one. Which is what I would have said if we weren't talking about a floating ship. Now this place is scary and honestly much more complicated than the factory. It feels as if the game caught on with how good you did back at the factory, so it completely flipped the environment to test how capable you are. Instead of the large open rooms, you have to go through many tight corridors that by the time you get back at the bell, you're guaranteed to have claustrophobia. Plus it doesn't help that this place is filled with enemies, so unless you're playing with friends that you can use as meat shields, you're not gonna make it. One more plus, this place consists of multiple floors, which I'll go through from top to bottom. First we got this room with plenty of chairs, then a bar, then a cart transport, then a cargo hold, and finally the maze, which is where you'll die most of the time. One last plus is that, like I said before, this ship is floating, so if you're the cameraman, do everyone in your team a favor and stay the fuck away from the ledges, cause at any moment you can get bitch slapped and fall infinitely, losing the camera in the process. Did I mention that you can retrieve the camera after you die? If you go back to the same location you got killed in, you can still find it, but as you already have a new one, you can't use it anymore. The only thing you can do is export the footage from it. Now I've already mentioned the enemies a lot, but there's a reason for that. Each enemy really serves his part in giving you both a painful beating and a massive heart attack.
See anything?
Nah, bro, no.
I'm stuck.
Now I can just sit here and talk about the enemies, but that's too boring honestly. So instead, I'm gonna talk about the enemies and put them in a tier list consisting of 4 tiers. S for stay the fuck away, A for annoyingly dangerous, B for beware, and F for just forget about it. Starting with the first enemy, we've got Snailman, or Zombie in the game's files. He's probably the first enemy you'll encounter once you enter the factory. He looks a bit like a human and is really slow, so you can outrun him by just walking away. But that doesn't mean he's harmless, because once he grabs you, he's not gonna let go unless you start spamming every button on your keyboard to break free. And through that process, your health is gonna be dropping slowly. Also, if he grabs you while there's another enemy in the room, you're practically screwed, as both of them will gang up on you and probably insta-kill you. Overall, good enemy, but can still be easily avoided, so B tier. Another enemy that grabs you and doesn't let go is Snatcho. This creature is the schizophrenia version of the fast zombie from Half-Life. He stalks you for a while and you'd think nothing of it, but then he'll grab you. And trust me, when that happens to you and you're playing alone, you have 2 options. The first one is to Alt F4, the second is to sit back and accept your fate, because the only way to fight back is shining a light at him from a flashlight, camera or a flare, which makes him disappear for a while. But if you get grabbed, he forces you to drop all your items as he takes you out. Unless you're playing with friends, cause then you're gonna be fine. A tier for how persistent he is. The next one is called Mouth. He's just a little dude that wanders around, but doesn't hurt you. Occasionally he lets out this very loud scream. Now for the longest time, I thought there was a bug in the game where your audio completely stops working until you go back home. But that wasn't the case. It turns out that when he screams at you, you go deaf until you leave the old world. So he's a tiny problem, but can still be avoided by using Discord. But you wouldn't do that, right? You wouldn't go ahead and cheat. F tier. Now, what if the roles were reversed? What if instead of having an enemy scream at you, you scream at the enemy to keep him away? In that case, let me introduce you to Ear. He kinda looks like Snatcho and does the same attack of trying to drag you away from your team, but the difference comes with the amount of ears it has. So the best method to keep him away is to scream into the mic and try to bust his eardrums. Pretty simple. B tier. The third monster that works on senses is Eye Guy. This one I'm really diverse about, because he starts harmless until you point any light source at him, which makes his pupils dilate and he starts attacking you. So I guess I'm gonna put him in B tier, considering that he doesn't attack you until you bother him. Moving on, the next enemy is called Whisk. He's basically a whisk with legs, but this one is much easier to deal with than the previous enemies. He just wanders around until he spots you, then he charges at you, which knocks you back and take out most of your health. But the good thing is that he's so clumsy, so anything that he bumps into can knock him down, which gives you a chance to quickly record him. And you can use that to make him fall off the ship. B tier. Next, we've got the Slurper. This one is basically a recreation of the Barnacle from Half-Life, so I don't have to explain what he does in detail. Touch rope, get pulled up, die. The difference is that this game doesn't have guns, so instead you have to throw something at him to make him drop your friends. He's pretty easy to avoid if you look up constantly, but I died a lot because of him, so I'm gonna put him as the final B tier. Fuck you, never wanna see you again. The next one is an enemy that I love and hate at the same time. Let me introduce you to Knifo. This one looks like every uncreative kid on Halloween, and at some point he even giggles like one. Which might be your sign to pull out the camera and start recording. It has this small kitchen knife which it'll use to stab you, and it's a bit slower than you, so it's better to keep your distance. But the best thing about it is that it can jump at you, so if you try getting to a high ground so it wouldn't reach you, you would be surprised as it jumps at you, knocking you down and taking some of your health in the process. Also, it can sometimes appear in groups, which will make your mission harder. So A tier for how much they can fuck with you sometimes. The next enemy we've got is the Barnacle. This enemy goes around the map looking for players, and once he spots you, unless you think quickly, you're gonna get beat up so bad that you can't even walk anymore. And here's exactly why. First, he's almost as fast as you are. Secondly, he has 3 different attacks. The first one he'll swing at you and could launch you a few meters in the air. The second attack is where the Barnacle starts spinning at a high speed, and it causes players, enemies and items to be pulled towards it, and it could easily take you out with this attack alone. The third attack, it releases a gas that quickly drains your health, and this is the only attack by an enemy that can still hit you even if you're hiding inside the bell. So with everything we've seen, I think I can proudly give this one an S tier. That thing is not gonna go easy on you. Another enemy that I really like is Dog. He's basically modeled after the real-life robot dogs, but this one got 2 things that the other one doesn't. The smiley face and the heat tracking machine gun on its back. Combine this one with the Snail Man and you've got the perfect team. A tier. Larva, on the other hand, is the only enemy that I couldn't survive on my own. At first glance, you're probably gonna think, how bad could it be? Well, first, this thing starts moving slower than the player, but then gets progressively faster to a point where you can't outrun it anymore. And once he reaches you, you're practically dead, as he lifts you up, then throws you across the room, taking away half your health. But that's not all, because once you hit the ground, he'll instantly rush to pick you up before you're able to stand up. An annoying enemy, but he earns it. S tier. And now we move to what I and most other players consider to be the strongest enemy in the game. Let me introduce you to Big Slap. Just to explain how strong he is, all the enemies that I've mentioned before need to hit you at least twice to kill you. This guy can one-tap you. I mean, there's a reason why he's called Big Slap, and he can also run faster than you and jump at you like Knifo does. The only reason I even survived against him in the first encounter was because he was focusing on my teammates, and I still got mauled by Snatcho afterwards. Instant S tier. Your chances of getting a girlfriend are still higher than your chances of surviving against him. Moving on, we've got ourselves the most unhinged enemy, which is the Bomber. This enemy hops around like a frog, and he seems kinda chill at first, until he pulls a bomb from his body and throws it at you, taking away most of your health. He can also pull a kamikaze by setting off all the bombs in his body and jumping at you. A tier. This next one might be the most divisive one, so hear me out. Around the old world, you can find a few objects on the floor that you can film, but some of them might kill you if you pick them up. The first one is the animal statues, and 2 of these things could be found next to each other. But the thing is that one of them could cause you to start floating and continuously lose health until you die. You can recognize it by reading its name. If it's misspelled, that means it's gonna kill you. You can also cancel its effect by grabbing the other statue. The second one is a painting of Big Slap, which spawns him near you if you pick it up. The third object is a radioactive container that kills you if you hold it for about 5 seconds. The fourth and final object is a brain on a stick, which upon picking up will spawn a few snail men near you. Now this is the part where that divisive take comes in. You see, as much as they deserve an A tier, they're technically harmless once you learn to keep your hands to yourself. And that's why I'm sticking with it. F tier. Back to the regular enemies, we've got ourselves the Maiden or Weeping in the files. This thing is basically an Iron Maiden with a sad face, and it will follow you when you're not looking at it until it gets too close and locks you inside it. When this happens to you, it will show 2 screens, one for you and one for your teammates. One of them has a timer, and the other contains a CAPTCHA test that they have to complete. If they don't do it in time, you die. So in conclusion, this thing is a mix between the I am not a robot verification and SCP-173. Close! Close!
No, wait.
Ooga booga! Ooga booga close! Close the fucking door! A tier. The third enemy left is Slime. This wobbly fella can't physically harm you, so instead he stuffs you inside him and takes you to a random room. but depending on your luck, he could either drag you to a room with a snail man or towards an S tier enemy. But if you ignore all that, you're practically fine, so F tier. Now the slime is a bit annoying, but it's nothing compared to the spider. This thing isn't really that fast, but it can still be the reason your entire team dies. It can shoot webs, and if you get stuck in them, you're gonna need a lot of struggle to break free. So if you spot a spider, you gotta get ready to dodge any webs it shoots at you. A tier. And now for the final enemy and the rarest one yet, the Flicker. This thing is almost up there with Big Slap because of how dangerous it is. His chances of spawning are so rare, but when it does, you can see a few signs that gives it off. Those include sudden flickering lights, or the flicker appearing and disappearing again. But once it actually appears and doesn't disappear anymore, is when you know shit's about to go down. When it does that, you won't be able to look away as it makes your screen glitch and then quickly kills you. The only way to survive against him is to keep looking at the ground like an introvert once he starts showing his first signs. S tier. And that's basically it. All the current enemies in the game. But I don't think we asked the important question yet. What is the old world? It's kinda obvious from the name that it was an old civilization, but there's gotta be some lore on what happened for it to become like this. And that's exactly what we're gonna look into. I mean, MatPat's retired and no one else is doing it, so it's about time I'd be the cool person on the internet. Now from what I saw, I could come up with two different theories. The first one is that you're stuck inside a dream loop, cause every time you fail a quota, you get a message about how everything was just a bad dream. This would explain why every time you die, you spawn back on the surface, and the non-existent logic, cause we all know how dreams could mess with you sometimes. The second theory is much more complicated, so bear with me. From the get-go, the game gives you indications about how dangerous the old world is, despite the previous generations living there, which you find out about through the comments. But something must have happened causing everyone to build upward to escape. And in my opinion, whatever happened down there must be related to a nuclear apocalypse. Which actually does clarify a lot of confusions, such as why everything in the old world looks either dead or looks mutated. The snail man could have been a normal snail, the spider could have been just a normal spider, and Big Slap could have been a gym rat. It also explains why we put on a metallic diving suit, equipped with oxygen tanks. The air must have been full of radiation that even on the surface you can still get sick. The radioactive clouds could have also completely blocked the sunlight, which is why it's completely dark. So in conclusion, Kim Jong-un must have fucking fat fingered the nuke button.
I regret nothing.
Now I would have ended the video here, but there's one more thing that is so game changing that it can even let you fight back against the enemies. And that thing is the shop. Who would have thought that something that looks like a McDonald's display could have been so useful in a world where snails could kill you? Now I would have loved to analyze everything in the shop thoroughly, but I'm lazy, so instead I'm gonna have to speedrun through all the categories. First one is the lights, kinda explanatory. Click the button and the world goes bright. There's 5 different flashlights and 1 flare. The old flashlight, which I'm not gonna lie, it's not that good. The modern flashlight, which covers a wide area. And the long flashlight, which could be used to expose a single target far away. Medical category has 2 items. Heal friends with the power of love or shock them back to life. Gadgets category has 6 items to improve your videos and protect yourself. Goo Ball, which freezes enemies, the 2 microphones for that crispy, smooth and beautiful sound, Clapper and Sound Player for dramatic effects, and Shock Stick, which stuns enemies for a few seconds. There's also 2 categories about emotes, but I don't have to explain those.
That's an emote. Oh yeah, the good demonstration.
And finally the miscellaneous, which includes only the party popper. And that's it. That's basically everything in content warning. This game is honestly such a fun experience, despite how janky it can be sometimes.
Help!
Help me!
But knowing that it's made by the same studio that made Tabs means that it'll keep improving with time. Alright, so this is like a postscript message, but Everything I said previously about the bugs has been patched while making this video. Plus, the devs released their first major update, which added a new map and about 12 new enemies, which I will not be covering because I have different projects to work on. Also, one more thing to mention, I came across this concept art of content warning, and considering that it has a radiation symbol drawn on what looks like the old world, I guess that second theory was correct, which makes me the second comment of MatPat, and why I should have ownership of the Game Theory channel. Goodbye everyone, no more game essays. Instead, I'm gonna start making a theory video on why The Last of Us series doesn't need a second season.